Hello and welcome to IP Study Video Lectures. And today we are going to discuss Chapter 8 from Grade 8 Social Science. And the name of the chapter is Rise of Indian Nationalism. In this chapter, we are going to cover a few important topics. Firstly, the growth of nationalism, followed by forerunners of the Indian National Congress, then the Indian National Congress, and lastly, events after 1905. So we all know, before the arrival of British, India was invaded by many foreign invaders and they plundered and looted the wealth of India. But it was the British who systematically drained the wealth of India. Okay, so British, they systematically and in a very unjust manner, they drained the wealth of India. So over time, with the spread of education, more Indians become educated and the educated Indians became aware of the fact that allowing British to settle in India was actually harming the Indian interest. Okay, so this awareness regarding the economic exploitation of Indians by the British, it acted as a significant catalyst for the growth of nationalism in India. Apart from this, the rise of Indian press, literature and development in transport and communication also played a very important role in the fostering or developing nationalism among the Indians. Now, let us discuss the first topic of the chapter, growth of nationalism. So, as we have already discussed, there are a number of factors that led to the growth of nationalism, such as political, economic, social and culture. Firstly, let us discuss the political factor. Political and administrative unification of India. So, under the British, India was brought under a central, or we can say one centralized administrative system. So, all over the country, there was a uniform laws, rules and regulation. Before that, it is possible that different places or region might have different rules and regulation because different kingdoms were actually ruling over them. But under the British, different parts of India was brought under one centralized system. So, one centralized administrative system, it unified the country, we can say. Thus, uniform laws and rules and regulation, it created a sense of unity, a sense of self-identity among the Indians. Apart from this, modern means of transportation and communication also help people move from one region to another, or we can say one part of country to another. So thus there was mixing of people or intermingling of people from different regions. Thus the ideas, the beliefs, they shared it among other people also. Thus this also helped in the developing of friendship or new connections within the Indians. Secondly, influence of Western education. Over time, Indians were educated and they learned about the different revolutions that took place over the world, such as the French Revolution, the Russian Revolution, or we can say the Nationalist movement in Italy and Germany. They read about the Western philosophers or Western thinkers like Locke, Spencer, Mill, Voltaire. So now they were introduced to ideas like liberty, equality, democracy. So with this, there was awareness among the educated Indians regarding nationalism. Third, role of newspaper, journals and national literature. So with the growth of literature, we can say with the growth of press, more Indians were introduced or more Indians were made aware of the ongoing political, economic suppression or exploitations. As such, many people wrote, many leaders, they wrote about the message of freedom, independence, such as Bal Gangadhar Tilak. He spread the message of freedom through his writing. Okay, and he also published newspaper like Keshari and Maratha, in which he wrote about the freedom. Okay. Apart from this, we also have nationalistic literatures like Bhartendu Harishchandra's play Bharat Durdasa or Bankim Chandra Chatterjee's novel Anand Mat. And our national song also, Vande Mataram, it was taken from Anand Math. Thus, people, they were motivated by reading all this nationalistic literature. And lastly, the Ilbert controversy, Ilbert Bill controversy. So in 1883, the then Viceroy Ripon, he proposed an amendment to a particular bill, which allowed the Indian judges and magistrate to try the British offenders. However, this bill was opposed by the British. Okay, it faced a massive backlash from the British. As such, this bill was diluted and many amendment was done in this bill, and it was finally passed with amendments in 1884. This showed the true nature of the British, that they were in no way willing to treat Indians as equal. Okay, they wanted Indians to be treated as a subject, and they themselves wanted to be treated as a master. So thus, all these factors played an important role in the growth of nationalism, or we can say in the developing of this feeling of nationalism among the Indians. So now the next topic is forerunners of the Indian National Congress. As we all know, Indian National Congress was established in 1885. However, before the establishment of Indian National Congress, there were many regional political associations. Okay, such as we have Landholders Society. It was established in Kolkata, that time Calcutta, in 1838. We have Bengal British Indian Society, established in 1843. Followed by this, we also have Madras Native Association and Bombay Association. It was established in 1852. One important such association was formed in 1866 by Dadabhai Naoroji. It was the East Indian Association, and it was established in England with and why was it established? It was established with an objective to create a public opinion in favor of India. He wanted to show the world how British is actually oppressing and exploiting India in different spheres, be it political, economic or social. Indians, they were stripped of their liberties, they were treated unequally, unfair, and there was no justice under the British colonial rule. So he wanted to create a public opinion regarding in favor of the Indians. Okay. Apart from this, we also have the Pune Sarvajanik Sabha. It was established by M.G. Ranade in the 1870s. And we also have Indian Association. It was established in Kolkata by Surendranath Banerjee in 1876. However, all of these were regional political association. It was only with the establishment of Indian National Congress that the platform was provided for a organized national movement. So, 1885, for the first time, a platform was given or provided for a organized national movement for independence. So, now the next topic is Indian National Congress. The Indian National Congress, it was established in 1885, and Allan Octavian Hume, or A.O. Hume, he played a very important role in the establishment of Indian National Congress. He was a British individual, and he was a retired civil servant. And he realized that the grievance of Indians, it was gradually increasing. And if it was not solved sooner, earlier, then the situation might erupt. And another revolt of 1857, likewise situation can occur. Thus, Indian National Congress, it was established to give a platform from which the British might learn about the grievances of the Indian. Okay, so Indian National Congress, it was established at Gokul Das Tejpal Hall in Bombay. It was attended by 72 delegates, and important one were Dadabhai Naoroji, M.G. Ranade, Surendranath Banerjee, Firoz Shah Mehta, Dinsa Wacha, Gopal Krishna Gokhale, and there were other leaders. So, thus the Indian National Congress was formed. So, now let us discuss the moderate phase. So, national leaders like Dadabhai Naoroji, Firoz Shah Mehta, Umesh Chandra Banerjee, Surendranath Banerjee, Gopal Krishna Gokhale, they dominate the Congress during the initial phase. And these leaders believed in the policy of liberalism and moderate politics. Thus, they came to be known as moderates. Okay, they believe in the constitutional method in order to achieve their objectives, and they followed the policy of 3P. 3P. Protest, prayer and petition. So, these leaders were called the moderate, or this phase of the Congress which was dominated by moderate leaders, it came to be known as moderate phase of the Congress. Now, what was the basic demand of the Congress during the moderate phase? Firstly, Indianization of civil service or Indian service, and expansion of legislative council and its power. Secondly, more power to the Indians in terms of administration and governance. There was a demand of Swaraj or self-rule within the British Empire. Another demand was withdrawal of Arms Act. They also demanded the reduction of land revenue, and they demanded that more support was given to the agriculture in India. Lastly, they also asked for support for Indian industries and promotion of free trade, or on the other, or we can say withdrawal on the ban of free trade. So these were the basic demands of Congress during the moderate phase. So now let us discuss the British attitude toward the Indian National Congress. So during its early time or initial phase of its formation, the British were a bit inclined toward the Indian National Congress. However, it soon became aggressive toward Indian National Congress because it realized that the Congress was focusing on Indian nationalism. Thus, the British, they turned a deaf ear towards the demand of the Congress. And this made the Indian realize that the British government was not sincere, and they lost their faith on the British government. And this led to the, or we can say resulted to the rise of radicals or extremist leaders within the Congress. So now let us discuss the radical phase. So what was the radical phase? Leaders like Lala Lajpat Rai, Bipin Chandra Pal and Bal Gangadhar Tilak, these leaders, they rejected the policy of moderates leaders, the policy of prayer and petitions. They believed in rather radical or we can say a bit extreme methods in order to make sure that the British fulfill their demands. And these leaders were called radicals. And Bipin Chandra Pal, Lala Lajpat Rai and Bal Gangadhar Tilak, they were popularly called Lal Bal Pal. These radical leaders, they promoted radicals way in order to express their ideas and demand. They believed in actions such as strikes, boycotts and demonstration. And they believed that this radical method will be more successful than the moderate policy followed by the Congress in order to spread awareness among the people. In fact, Bal Gangadhar Tilak even declared, Swaraj is my birthright and I shall have it. So they believed in a bit radical method, a bit extreme method in strikes, hartals, dharnas, while the moderate leaders, they believed in prayer and petitions. So now the last topic is events after 1905. Partition of Bengal. In 1905, Lord Curzon, the then Viceroy of India, he decided to partition Bengal into two parts, West Bengal and East Bengal. East Bengal was then merged with Assam. The clarification given behind the partition was that West Bengal was a very big province and it was very difficult to administer it properly. Thus, for administrative ease, it was partitioned into two parts. However, the main reason behind the partition was to curb the rise of growing nationalism. The Bengal was a place of growing nationalism, and also to implement the policy of divide and rule between Hindus and Muslims. So this was the actual main motive behind the partition of Bengal. Thus, this move by the British government, or we can say by partitioning the Bengal into two parts, resulted in Indians becoming hostile toward the British government. Indians then launched different anti-partition movement and different other movement, because they realized that now British is challenging the Indian nationalism. Okay, and in this period we see Swadeshi and boycott movement. The Swadeshi, it literally means one owns country. So this movement aimed at the production of Indian goods, indigenous Indian goods. And along with Swadeshi, we also have boycott movement, where the British goods institution, it was boycotted. Thus, Swadeshi movement and boycott movement was aimed at the development of Indian industry, promotion of Indian goods, and boycott of foreign products, because the Indian leaders, they realized that in order to fight against the economic exploitation of the British, and if we want to stop the interest of British in India, we have to boycott their goods and produce our own goods. Thus, the Swadeshi movement and boycott movement, it was an open challenge for the British, where the people, they burned British goods, they left British institution, and they started their own industry, they promoted their own Indian goods. So now the next topic is the Calcutta session of 1906. So in 1906, the annual session of Congress was held in Calcutta. It was chaired by Dadabhai Naoroji, and it was in this session Congress declared Swaraj or self-government as its main goal. Thus, it made clear that the Indians was to be governed by the elected representatives of the people and not the British. So, Swaraj or self-government as its main goal was declared in this session. Now, the Surat split of 1907. So, we all know that there was a difference regarding the ideas and methods followed by the moderates and extremists, and this difference, it grew over time, and thus in Surat session of 1907, because of the difference between the two groups, there was a conflict between the two groups, and thus the Congress was split into two parts, one moderates and another radicals. The moderates, they were against the method followed by the radicals, which was extreme according to them. And thus, after the split of the Congress, this is also called the Surat split, the Congress was mostly dominated by the moderates leaders, while the radical leaders, it was led by Tilak, they functioned from outside the group. However, these two groups again united in the Lucknow session of Congress in 1916. However, taking advantage of the split of the Congress, the government attacked, the British government, they launched an attack on the extremists. They tried to suppress the extremist leaders and the extremist method of working. Formation of Muslim League, 1906. So, Nawab Salimullah of Dhaka, along with some other important Muslim leaders, they established All India Muslim League in order to protect the interests of Muslim group, along with promoting or we can say promoting the idea of loyalty towards the British government of the Muslim population. And we should know that Muslim League, they actually supported the partition of Bengal. So now the next topic is Morley-Minto reforms of 1909. So after the partition of Bengal, there was unrest in India, and also there was a growing pressure from the Indian National Congress. As such, all these factors, it persuaded the British government to introduce reforms in Indian government, and this reform came in the form of Indian Council Act or Morley-Minto Act. It was brought by the then Viceroy, Lord Minto, and Lord Morley, the then Britain's Secretary of State of India. So it was called Morley Minto Reform. So what was the provision? This act increased the number of elected Indians in the legislative councils. On the other hand, it also provided for separate electorates for Muslims, and it was said that this was done to protect the interests of the minority. However, the Britain, they cleverly planted the seed of we can say divide and rule by favoring the particular section of the country. Thus, they tried to check the growth of unity among Hindu and Muslim, as well as they tried to curb the rise of nationalism in India. So now let us discuss the case study of the revolutionaries. So apart from the moderates and radical group, there was another group of young men who were fighting against the British, and they believed in the act of violence and armed resistance against the British in order to drive the British out of the country and gain independence. Okay, and these young people or revolutionaries, they organized groups, secret societies and groups, and they planned assassination attempts and other attempts on the British officials. And such secret societies and groups, it existed all over the country, mostly in Punjab, Bengal, Maharashtra. And if you look at some of the important association, we see Abhinava Bharat Society that was formed in Maharashtra and Anusilan Samiti that was formed in Bengal. Now let us look at the name of some of the important revolutionaries. Khudiram Bose and Prafulla Chakki, these two revolutionaries in 1908, they attempted to kill a British judge by throwing bomb at his carriage. But however, accidentally they killed another two British ladies. As a result, Khudiram Bose, he was hanged, while Prafulla Chakki, he killed himself. So another is Chapekar brothers. They assassinated the British official, two British officials in Maharashtra. And apart from revolution in India, we also have revolutionaries who were living abroad or outside of India. For example, Lala Hardayal, Ras Bihari Bose, Madam Bikaji Kama and Muhammad Barkatullah. So these were some of the revolutionaries who were operating outside India. Okay, so outside India, we also find many important revolutionary societies or association. One important example is the Gadar Party. It was a revolutionary association and it published journals in order to spread awareness about revolutionary ideas to the people. Thus, we see many revolutionaries, they sacrificed their life fighting the colonial rule of the British. So now let us summarize few important points that we have discussed in this chapter. There are various factors that led to the rise of nationalism in India. For example, spread of modern education, role of press, administrative and political unification, and discontentment against Albert Bill. Before the formation of Indian National Congress in 1885, there were many other smaller regional political associations. Indian National Congress, it was formed in 1885 and its initial phase was dominated by moderate leaders. These leaders believed in prayer, petition and protest. On the other hand, we have radical group who actually followed a different method than the moderates. They were a bit radical in their methods and they believed in hartal, demonstration, strikes in order to fight the British. Bengal was partitioned in 1905 and Indians, they launched anti-partition movements such as boycott movement and Swadeshi Movement. The Morley Minto Reform of 1909 or Indian Council Act of 1909, it provided more elected Indians in the legislative council, but at the same time, it also provided separate electorates for Muslims. Thus, it tried to create division between the Hindu and Muslim, and it tried to create it tried to suppress the unity between Hindu and Muslim. So with this, I conclude the chapter. I hope this lecture was able to clear your doubts, and we'll again meet in our next lecture. Thank you.